One issue that a lot of guys have when they're thinking about how to game girls, meet more women, it's what do I do when it comes to nightclub covers? Am I going to go out 5 nights a week and pay $50 covers, $40 covers, $20 covers? Because most cities have some covers, right? Am I going to pay that all the time? You know, some guys will use that as an excuse to not game, or use that as an excuse that the money aspect kind of comes into play. Other issues would be vehicle. Other issues would be clothing. Like there's so many like potential monetary, fiscal issues that come into play with game, right? Even if you have good income. Even if you have good income, it's, are you really going to spend 5,000 item bottles to compete with another guy? You know, is that really going to happen? You know. So the first thing I'll talk about is club entry. When you talk about club entry with your buddies, the first thing that comes into mind is, what's the cheapest place I can get into tonight? Right? How often does that come up in conversation? Well, what's the reduced cover? What's the free cover? What's the cheap drinks tonight? Well, if you're in a town like Vegas, Miami, LA, New York, or like a big game town, it's like, well, what's the cheapest thing that I can do to like somehow muster up my way into the nightclub? Okay. When you're in a smaller town, college town, maybe even like a really rural town, it's like the drink specials. Right? Well, I want to go to the place with the $1,000 martini. I want to go to the place with the $5,000 shots per shot, because I don't care if it's $100, if it's the $3 you call it or a $100 shot, I'm still not going to buy it. So well, who cares? But what happens with the place that's super expensive, the higher end place? It's just going to have hotter girls. It's going to have more attractive girls, and it's much more likely that you can use your social connection, your social prowess, to get yourself into that nightclub. When it's a place that's the hardest places to get into are the place that's like a college bar, like a $5 to $10 cover. Those are the places that suck, because there's not a lot you can do to get into those places. It's a lot easier to get into a place that is a $100, $160 night at Hakkasan nightclub where Chainsmokers is playing, like it was last night or the night before. It's a lot easier to get into that nightclub and not pay $160 than it is to get into a college bar where it's $5 or $10. But people will lie to you and not tell you that. They'll tell you that that's not the way that it is. They'll also not fully disclose the fact that you can get 5 to 10 comp drink tickets when you go into the place where Hakkasan or Omnia or some place that's or even in Chicago at Mid, or one of these places you could, or Underground, right? These clubs that are worth going to, these better spots, they're easier to get into.
Because nobody tries, right?
Nobody tries to get into those kinds of places without paying. Second of all, you have more social capital potential. A little shitty dive bar in Austin, Texas, like on 6th Street, right? That's like for sure, or Lincoln Park in Chicago, for example, right? If they're hardcore charging $5, $10 cover, there's not much that they can be gained by letting you in, and you just seem trite. You seem kind of it seems weird that you're going to like complain over that. But there's no real social capital that can be gained from that interaction with that door guy at that nightclub. It's just kind of a quid pro quo. Do you want to come in? Do you not want to come in? Let's just make this happen. There's a lot more quotas over. There's like direct quotas of like what's the cover for the door. Oftentimes places like that, and they're oftentimes college bars, right? And oftentimes they're PUA bars, because PUAs a lot of times will want to do the $5 cover, but they're too intimidated to try to talk their way into like the higher end places. A lot of times too, higher end places, you can't even pay cover. There's just no register. You take cities like New York, there's just no cover at these places. You can't, you'll be in line, but they just won't let you in eventually. You have to figure out another way to do it. So you could sit there, pay $5 to $15 cover charge at some college bar or some PUA bar, or you could talk your way into a place like One Oak and pay nothing. To me, it's a no-brainer. But it's a matter of realizing that not only how do you do it, but that it is possible. It is the thing that you should be doing. And whether it's a small city or a large city, the thing still applies. You have to always go to the place where the most social equity is able to be attained. Wherever there's the most social equity able to be attained, you're actually going to be able to game a much stronger way. So cover charge at a nightclub. One simple way that you can do this is you email the club ahead of time. You just literally email the club ahead of time, tell them that you want to check it out and see the venue. You can do this for a lot of reasons. I just like to email the club ahead of time and just say, hey, I want to come check it out. Would it be possible for me to meet somebody at the door and take a look at the nightclub? It implies a lot of things when you say that. Oftentimes, somebody will want to come, if there's like a high roller, like a big time person who's coming to the nightclub, they'll send somebody ahead of time to check out that club. This happens with every high status guy that I know. They'll send somebody to the club ahead of time, check it out, make sure it's safe, make sure that they know which table they're going to sit at the next day. I don't mind being that peasant at that nightclub, especially when that other guy is never coming. It's amazing. You blag your way right in, right? Because what happens is there's no real downside to them letting you in. There's only potential upside. The more times you can put yourself in a situation where there's no real downside, it's only potential upside, the better your chances are going to be of getting into that club. And think about how much money you can save if you just don't ever pay for cover ever again in your entire life. I can get into any nightclub in the world for free, including member-only clubs that have sliding fucking things where they're looking out to make sure who you are to get in the club, including speakeasies, including Soho House, including Centurion Amex lounges. You can do these techniques to get into any one of these places. Now, granted, each one has its own specific nuances to it. So for the purpose of this talk, we're going to talk about nightclubs. But I can get into those other higher end places later as well. Some of the hottest girls I've ever met were at the Amex Lounge in Vegas. And now it's just the easiest place to ever talk to a girl. Like, you both have high status. You're both you like glance over at the girl and she's like, oh, who are you? That's awesome. It's crazy. It's crazy talk. You go in there and they're giving like you free massages and giving you like bomb ass like short rib and then like a glass of champagne, knowing you by your name as you walk into that place. It gets pretty fucking cool. Soho House is another high-end example. You just walk into Soho. Like most celebrities that I've seen in LA, I saw at the Soho House in LA. There's just these places that if you just know about and you know how to facilitate your way into them, it's better. Now, granted, you're in a smaller city. There's other high-value places to go to. It might be a country club. It might be, there's other different things we can do based on like your exact city. So it could change a little bit. So we can talk through each individual city example. But let's take nightclubs as an example. Just number one, email them ahead of time. You email them ahead of time. One of the best clubs in New York, top of the standard, right? LeBain, there's like a couple kind of clubs around there. They will literally tell you to just email them ahead of time. They just want a little bit of respect, knowing that you are not a low quality, low status person. It's not rocket science. I have emailed my way into many, many nightclubs. I've emailed my way after I gotten off the airport, or out of the airport, off of the plane, and just emailed them in the Uber over to the venue, and it works fantastic.
When you're sending the email, are you sending it to the actual nightclub, or are you sending it to someone you found out, like either a VIP?
I'll send a bunch of different ones. It depends how far ahead of time. I'll send it to a bunch of different ones ahead of time. Next thing to think about with cover charge. All your reconnaissance info, all your SEAL Team 6 mission critical information is on social media. So, for example, you can find out the manager, the door guy, all the info, all your name dropping you need to do, just look them up on social media. Do a little bit of research. Look them up on social media, figure out which person actually is going to be at the door. Do a couple Google searches to see if one of them just got promoted. So simple. And guess what? In nightlife, everyone's always getting promoted. Always. Every day there's a new position, transient switch that's happening. And this isn't manipulative. This isn't trying to like con your way in. This is you actually doing what's called relationship building. You build the relationship with the person. You're not trying to, the reason why I'm allowed into every nightclub in the world, to the point where I'm on the NFU list, if you do a really good job of getting into these clubs, they'll put you on what's an actual list called NFU. The NFU stands for the no fuck up list. Meaning that when they see you, they better not fuck up. They better let you in the place. I found out about this because one time I went into this club in New York, and this was several years ago now, probably 4 years ago, 4.5. And I went into this club and they're like, oh shit. That was the first thing they said when I said my name. And I go, what? I was like startled. And they're like, no, come on in. It's cold, come on in. And I'm like, okay, cool. We'll talk inside. He like let the door just sit there while he had a conversation with me. And I go, bro, I appreciate it. What's with all the hospitality? Giving people positive rewards when they help you, especially in a relationship building kind of situation, is the nicest thing and the most rewarding thing that you can actually do for yourself. When you tell people, when somebody does something good for you, tell them that you're happy and glad they did that good thing for you, and they're going to want to keep doing that thing for you. It's how you build a relationship. It's in fact how you gel with people. I would die of severe alcohol poisoning any night of the week if I drank all of the free drinks that are thrown at me. Severe alcohol poisoning. I don't know how I haven't died yet of severe alcohol poisoning because of all the free drinks that are thrown at me. It's gotten to the point where when we do events, each person is handed a bottle to drink instead of like a cup. Do you know how cheap alcohol is for a nightclub? It's almost nothing. It's almost free, the actual bottle of alcohol. It's literally almost free. To the point where you do your own events at your own house, your own condo. I can show you how to get free alcohol just given to you for those events through the liquor distributor. Alcohol is like the craziest commodity you'll ever have when it comes to this kind of thing. When you're getting into those clubs, and when I was getting into Oak that one night, and the door guy said, oh yeah, it's cool, you're on the NFU list. What got him to say and tell me I'm on the NFU list is what he said was, or I told him, thank you for your hospitality, I appreciate it. When you tell somebody in the hospitality industry, thank you for your hospitality, it shows them that you are in the know with the verbiage, that you're somebody who gives a shit about hospitality, that you give a shit about relationship building. When you can show somebody else that you care about relationship building, they will suddenly care about building the relationship with you. If you're somebody who very clearly is maybe not even trying to take advantage, but you're not giving a shit about building that relationship with them, they won't care. Not that they want to be mean to you, they just are really trying to aggressively build relationships. That's because that's what they have to do. Whether you're at a restaurant, a nightclub, strip club, anything like that, the relationship being built will get you crazy cascading accolades. You'll have everything you could possibly want afterwards from that. But you have to show first that you care about that relationship. If you don't show first, if you don't invest first to show them that you care, it's not going to happen. I've gotten to a point where I can just show people at any door ever that I care about the relationship being built, and then on top of that, I can show that it's worthwhile for them to build that relationship with me, to the point then where I don't need to do a lot of these techniques. I don't really need to email the club ahead of time. I don't really need to do the business card thing. I don't need to swing through the club one time as if I went in and popped out and then made the connection. I can pretty much just build that connection right off the bat because I'm showing them how much I care about hospitality, how much I care about the industry. Once you realize that there is this thing called the industry is a series of restaurants, nightclubs, anything, basically any place that you would possibly ever meet a girl. It's called the industry. Once you're able to identify and use the correct verbiage to associate with the industry, in any way, with clothing, with style, with verbiage, actual things that you say, with showing them which time and day of the week you're attending their establishment, which way you're asking for reservations or not asking for reservations, which verbiage you're using to get into the nightclub or the restaurant or whatever it might be. When you can show them that, it subtly communicates to them that not only do you understand where they're coming from, i.e. empathy, but it also shows them that you might actually be industry yourself. I remember back in the day, I used to just make up, I was the master of fake business cards. I had MTV fake business cards. I had like different nightclub business cards. It was crazy. I just had all these fake business cards. This was like years ago. I remember that. It was like one of the main ways I get into nightclubs. I had a business card of like another nightclub, and I said, yo, I'm industry. Here you go. I just ripped off the business card completely. I don't recommend you do that. I don't recommend you do that because there's other ways to do it where you're actually really building the relationship. And building the relationship with these people will get you, building one solid relationship with somebody in your town that has access, a gatekeeper, to a venue will get you free cover forever at any nightclub in that city because they all know each other. So you use a business concept called driving through their network. You drive through their network and suddenly now you just have access to one person at one club, but you'll have access to all of the clubs all of the time, which will save you a shit ton of money. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a situation where there is a guest list for me at each of the places that I like to go out at in multiple cities that I like to go to. But that's going to take several months for me to keep building. I've started the process of that, but for that to be very consistent, it's going to take a few months. Right now I have that in Vegas. Right? You have the guest list chat. You can just hop on the guest list. And it's basically clubs that I would go to each night. You have access to it. I'm in the process of setting that up for multiple cities. There's all these other like cards out there that you can kind of like Google for it, but they're not very reliable. I want to make one that's super reliable because it's just based off my own connections. I want to show you guys that you being allowed into that nightclub is in fact it's helping the person who's letting you in. Take some of these larger nightclubs. The larger nightclubs have these slips. Some of the verbiage that you could use is, could you write me a slip? Hey, I'm industry, could you write me a slip? When you ask them if they can write you a slip, what that implies is that you understand the process of getting in that nightclub. You're trying to make their job easier. Anything you can do to help them help you is going to make it work. Just give them a reason. That's all they're asking. Just give them a reason and they'll let you into that nightclub every time. Another way is to know how the process works to the extent of you never even going through general admission. Let's say you're at a more hard to get into nightclub. You'll never see me walk at a general admission line ever, period. Even if that line is shorter, I won't walk in the general admission line. Because I don't ever want to be perceived or set that frame that I'm a general admission kind of person. I'm not a general admission person. I know my worth. I'm a table line person. So you always want to go through the table reservation line, if there is one. Some venues don't have one, but most venues have a table reservation line, even if it's hard to tell. Even San Francisco has table reservation lines. It's just sometimes not as blatant as a city like Vegas or Miami, where they have like signs and arrows pointing which way, right? Make sense? The reason why the cover thing is such a strong point is because it's a euphemism, it's a metaphor for how to do other things. If you can get into that nightclub and do that relationship building with that one individual door guy or promoter or host, whatever it is that is that gatekeeper, then what ends up happening is it's very, very easy then to get friends with the promoters, friends with the bartenders, friends with the managers, friends with the sommeliers. Sommeliers have gotten me laid more than a lot of these other people have gotten me laid. The sommelier is a wine expert. He's the one who picks the wines, curates the wines. Guess who likes really, really nice wine? Really, really hot girls. It's just kind of a thing. Even if they hate the wine, even if they know nothing about it, they like to be a part of the culture. And guess who's a part of that culture and who is the HNIC of that culture? It's the sommelier, right? The long-term goal is for you to be the HNIC of any situation you're ever in. But the sommelier will always beat you in those situations. So what you do is you make friends with sommeliers. You make friends with the manager of these different restaurants. You make friends with these people. And again, the highest social equity place you can get into. In the bigger cities, for example, the best restaurants, you should be able to get free or comp or half off dinners at these restaurants that you can then bring girls to or meet girls at those restaurants by just making friends with the general management staff that's there. That saves huge, huge amounts of money. But it starts with the door guys. It starts with the door guys at each city. It starts with the promoters / hosts. The terminology is different based on the city, so don't get too hung up on that. Just get hung up on the relationship building with each person that you see and let them see that you actually give a shit about building that relationship. Not just that you care about it, but you're showing them that you actually care about building that relationship. Once you can do that, they'll see that it's safe to introduce you to the people that they know. And now you've created this cascading effect where it just envelops in front of you. You have to make a very safe environment for them to introduce you to the people that they know. Once you do that, you now have access to more things.